Well, to further dissect these issues, joining me in the studio is Charles Fakroha, stockbroker and IBrandTV senior analyst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, for having me.
Yes. Yeah, let's begin with this excise duty. The federal government are saying that they are planning to relieve the MSMEs from paying this 10 naira excise duty on the luxury, or rather on the carbonated drinks.
Yes. Again, it's like this government is just waking up. SMEs, NSMEs, these are the engine growth of any developing economy. And the ones that are operating in Nigeria with this kind of business environment is very challenging. Despite everything, yet you want to still place them the same way you want to place multinationals. How will you now say they will pay, 10 naira per liter for carbonated drinks, Meanwhile, so these SMEs are already overtaxed, even from the government and also from the operating environment. So the government rethinking and realizing that for them to encourage them is to give them that waiver. I will give the Minister of Trade, Investment and Industry, I will give him kudos for standing his point and saying that these SMEs has to be given this waiver. It will go a long way in encouraging more people to get into the SME space. Of course, it's only SMEs that can provide jobs currently for our teeming unemployed youths.
Many stakeholders have frowned at this 10 naira excise duty on carbonated drinks, especially looking at the fact that the impact would also be felt by consumers. They would have to pay more for these drinks.
Yes.
So some stakeholders and experts have said, instead of adding this excise duty on carbonated drinks, why not place it on luxury items like this, what's it called, all these drinks, the wines and all that, as against these ones that the average common man takes?
Well, let's look at it from this way. Some other school of thought have said also maybe they want to reduce diabetes consumption of sugar and all that. But again, well, the health people will tell us. But I don't think just faking some of these carbohydrates will make you become diabetes. Averagely, once you are over 40, of course, you begin to check some of the things you take in terms of your diet. Check your numbers, your blood sugar level, blood pressure, and of course cholesterol. They also check your prostate. So all these are health issues, and it's not for everybody. And the doctors will say stop taking these drinks. Again, but the government putting that, I agree with you, they should do it for other more luxury goods. And of course I think they also have those ones, they also have the things for them. If you are bringing some of those luxurious wines and all that, there are certain things you have to pay. So I think those ones have their own.
Yeah, but what about the impact of this excise duty on consumers?
Like I said, we have to look at it in two ways. Well, it will reduce the consumption, and probably, we don't have the statistics, if you reduce consumption, then of course it will reduce the incidences of diabetic, probably, yes, and obesity. Yes.
Well, let's move on to this next story. The Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has received approval to build the Badagry deep sea port, which was approved by the Federal Executive Council in August. What does this imply?
Well, it's also a big feeling. Some persons will tell you why another port in Badagry. Of course, Badagry has all the natural environment for a functional port to be there. There is a natural beach. And of course, if you want to take care of our neighboring countries, instead of vessels leaving Lagos port and going to other neighboring ports, we can have them in Badagry. But the question one will ask economically, I know it's going to be very viable because there's a lot of economic activities in Lagos. But we also have the Lekki
deep sea ports, which was recently launched.
Yes, we also have the Lagos Port Complex, which houses Apapa and some other ports.
Island, Tinkan.
Yes, you also have the Ruru and the Tinkan port, and people have been complaining that congestion of these ports. Meanwhile, the Calabar port is there, the Warri port is there, Port Harcourt port is there, Onne port is there, and those ones are complaining of low patronage. And some businessmen in the east will say it would have been better for them, their cargo to be routed through maybe the Port Harcourt port or Calabar
As against having to travel from Lagos first and then all the way to the east.
You know?
But are you saying that this Badagry port should maybe have been located in another part of the country?
No. You locate ports based on the geographical, exactly. And Badagry has that natural environment. What I would advise the government to do, now they have said this is public-private partnership. Is build, operate, and transfer. So that means maybe it's going to be 20, 30 years, it will be transferred now to the government. Of course, the government is providing the land. It's a good development. It will create a lot of jobs. But we should not neglect just the mere fact that you are giving approval for new ports. The other existing ports should also be used to optimal capacity so that we get the maximum benefit from having this port. Increases international trade. And the turnaround for vessels is very key. You're not just having this port. Have we been able to deploy maritime technology that once a vessel comes in, within 48 hours, is turned around, is discharging, and of course, is going to bring another cargo again. The turnaround time must be improved. Of course, the roads in Lagos too, because some of this haulage, some of this cargo, some of these containers have to be moved from the ports to the owners, the factories where they will use some of these cargo. So that also has to be taken into consideration. It's a good development, and I will say congratulations to Lagos State government, because we also see more and more people, migrating towards that part of Lagos State, and we see a decongestion from the Lagos Island, of course, the mainland.
Well, it's also said to have the potential to create 25,000 jobs. That's reducing the unemployment rate, hopefully.
Yes, if I will listen carefully to the reports, it's even 250,000.
250,000, yes.
It's a very good development for Lagosians, and of course, Lagos is home for everybody, not only in Nigeria, but those from other African countries also come. So it will be good. Direct labor, it will be good. But my advice will be, let's the operators or those who are going to be involved in that project look at deploying advanced maritime technology to operate in that port so that we get the maximum benefit having such a port.
Well, let's talk cocoa. And this is saying that the federal government has said that the country earned 122.8 billion naira from the export of raw cocoa beans and cocoa products in the first quarter of 2022, according to the Minister of Agriculture. And they are looking at the need for the federal government's commitment to support the agricultural sector to diversify the economy, especially in the area of increase in cocoa production. You'd realize that when it comes to cocoa, this is a raw material that is very useful. For instance, coffee is the second most traded commodity in the world. That's aside crude oil. So you would wonder why we are not exploring this potential well enough to generate revenue for the country.
Yes, it goes to show how our agricultural sector has not been properly developed. Yes, we have the arable lands, we have the farmers, but we still need to deploy advanced technology in terms of cocoa research. It's funny, the product we're exporting is raw cocoa products. We're not adding value to it. So we would have earned more if we had added value to those cocoa products, export them, and of course earn that foreign exchange. So what happens? We plant cocoa, maybe the beans raw, we export it, it gets to Europe, they process it, they do some other
sell coffee back to us.
Might not be only coffee, some other chocolates and all that, and we import it.
It's just the same issue we have with crude oil.
So you can see we need to add value to our agricultural product for we to get the optimal benefit from this agricultural product. So cocoa research has to go on continuously for us to increase our yield per hectare.
You know, I was speaking with a coffee producer at one time who was telling me about the fact that there isn't even any cocoa farm here in Lagos. If you need maybe to get the raw materials, you have to go to maybe the north and other places where they have it. And you're wondering, we have this arable land. The land is rich.
Yes.
We have these raw material, but it looks like we just don't have what it takes, or rather we have what it takes, but perhaps we don't have the right leadership in position.
Maybe political will. But again, that's why some persons have asked, this oil, was it a blessing or a curse? Because these were the things we were doing before the discovery of oil. And because oil is cheap, as at that time, it was just flowing and the money was just coming. So we neglected agriculture, and that is the problem we're having. We'll have used some of these monies earned from oil exploration and production to develop other sectors of the economy. We didn't do it, and that is why a former head of state, I'll mention his name, General Gowon, told us our problem was to have to spend our money. This was in the early 1970s, after the Civil War. We had so much money. It was how to spend our money. If we had known and they were forward looking, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years development plan, and we should have invested in other sectors to improve, so that when we're having issues with oil now, those other sectors will have continued to make the economy sustainable. Yes.
Well, let's talk about our debt stock, which of course has been an issue in recent times. The president of the World Bank, David Malpass, has said that the bank will work with the IMF to assess Nigeria's debt sustainability. We know that the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, has reiterated it on several occasions that our debt stock to revenue ratio is sustainable. But before we talk about that, let's take a break, a commercial break. We'll be right back. It's still Business Breakfast right here on IBrandTV, and we're looking at the top business stories with Charles Frankroa right here in the studio. So we're talking about Nigeria's debt stock, and the World Bank saying they would work with the IMF to, you know, look at or assess Nigeria's debt sustainability.
How sustainable? Yes, if you look at it from the face value, it's obvious that we cannot sustain this kind of debt profile. But of course, they will tell us the ratios are still okay. We are supposed to do about 40%. What we have is 70. This. Again, I keep saying, if you have done Finance 101, you know that ratio analysis has to go with not that ratio you have just calculated. You need to compare with similar industries or firms in similar industries. Yes, they will say we have done that with our West African brothers. For me, that is not enough. For you to continue to say you want to take money, you want to borrow money, then you should look at your revenue source. And that's why you see IMF and the World Bank, they're now a little bit scared and say, is this your debt sustainable? Meanwhile, they're even telling us subsidy is too much.
Are they scared? Because you are saying they are scared. Are they scared?
For them to
they
come
keep
out,
lending us money.
Yes,
they are the main lenders.
Yes, they are the main lenders. And if your main lender has started telling you that, look, you need to reappraise and see whether this is possible. The Minister of Finance, she's doing a very great job. You know, they're even talking of debt restructuring.
Looks like she does more of the cover-up job, saving face, as against tackling the issue head-on.
No, but that's why she's the minister.
To cover up?
Not even to cover up. All these meetings she's attending and even saying, okay, we are owing this much. We still need to borrow. She's talking of debt restructuring. Most of the short-term debt, she wants it to be restructured to become long-term, so that we can see how, it's just to give us a little bit of reprieve, so we can see some development. Then, of course, believing that in the future our revenue will improve, then we can begin to service some of these debt. But if you ask me, I think this is the time we need to come back home and look at our revenue generation drive. The government agencies that are expected to generate revenue, it's matter of even giving them targets. What are they doing? A government agency will generate. There is no transparency in terms of what they remit to federal government, and there are a lot of probe here and there. So there's a lot of leakages going on, and that is why the IMF and World Bank are now trying to say, reappraise and look at this. They know that we have the potential to pay all our debt if we are a little bit transparent, open-minded. Then we have the potential. They will continue to lend, because if you're a good creditor, You know,
they always want to.
They always want to, yes. They always want, because that's where they make their money.
I think they should do better. They should maybe reduce the way at which they lend Nigeria, so that maybe the federal government will begin to look at these issues. For instance, the subsidy payment.
They're also doing their research. They're looking at your revenue sources, and they're saying that if you can do well, then you can continue to borrow as long as you can service the debt, and it will just go on. But
oh wow,
it will stop one day.
And more money to them.
Of course.
All right, thank you so much for your time on the show. Charles Fakroha, IBrandTV's senior analyst.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
And have a great weekend.
I wish you same.
Still to come after the break, the Nigeria Exchange Limited continued on a negative note on Wednesday as the equity markets depreciated by 0.02%. All-share index slid to 47,524.38. Following profit taken in 10 shares, including recently listed Gidegu. We'll look at this after the break. Don't go anywhere.